Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed weather forecast update nationwide for Sunday the 29th of June 2025. A lot to get through in today's forecast update. A large east coast low weather system is expected to develop offshore from New South Wales later tomorrow night, and we're expecting severe weather in the form of heavy rainfall and destructive winds to unfold across the New South Wales east coast through early to mid next week. Rainfall is also occurring up in far north Queensland, and also a little bit of rainfall expected across southwestern WA, as you'd expect for this time of the year. All of the details on this, plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things this morning with our top story, that east coast low development offshore from New South Wales. So the system hasn't formed yet, but we're now beginning to see the signs of the system beginning to develop. Plenty of moisture streaming down from the northwest over through Queensland, where we've had some good rainfall through some locations, but I'll get to that in a later part of this forecast update. This rainfall here is now piling into the southeast of Queensland, or at least the convective cloud activity is now piling into the southeast of Queensland, and this is where the low pressure system is going to begin to take shape. We're now starting to see enhanced moisture coming in from the east, as well as a high pressure ridge funnels in that moisture situated over the Tasman Sea that's moving now in towards southeastern Queensland, and that's just going to enhance the development of this low pressure system, which, as you can see when we flick this over to the forecast model side of things, will occur through tonight and into early tomorrow morning. So the low isn't going to be initially apparent on the forecast modeling until early tomorrow morning, and by tomorrow morning I'm expecting we're going to be waking up to this developing low pressure system in all of its glory on the radar and the satellite imagery. If that isn't the case, it will just be a couple of hours behind that, but you can see that rainfall and shower activity really beginning to pile in for the northeast of New South Wales, and also pockets of southeast Queensland through tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon. The winds out of the east are really going to intensify as well as this low pressure system picks up steam, and it's meant to hug the coast as well. In fact, all major forecast models now suggesting for this to be very close to the coastline through Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and this is where we begin to see the major changes that the forecast models have taken overnight, and why we were looking at such an uncertain forecast, which has now since changed to pretty much a rock solid expectation that this system is going to hug the coastline, and we were expecting it to move a little bit further south as well. So there have been some pretty big changes in the forecast impacts of certain locations, and I'll get to that in the next couple of minutes or so, but just the rock solid forecast at this point in time through Monday and into Tuesday, hugging the New South Wales coastline. By Tuesday morning we're expecting it to be offshore from Taree, bringing that worst severe weather conditions in between Sydney up towards Taree through Tuesday morning. The gnarly severe weather and rainfall is expected to intensify further south of Newcastle and then really pick up through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Sydney will really be in the thick of it through Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. In fact, severe weather conditions expected from about lunchtime on Tuesday, really picking up in the evening and then into early Wednesday morning, and then finally beginning to slowly weaken off through Wednesday and into Thursday. Severe weather will continue further south on the New South Wales coastline in the form of heavy rainfall and locally damaging winds through Wednesday afternoon and evening, and even in towards Thursday morning, before the low pressure system finally draws away from the New South Wales coastline through Thursday and falls apart further out into the Tasman Sea on Friday. So not exactly a long-lived weather system. Normally east coast lows, they tend to kick around for about a week up towards 9 or 10 days. Some of the systems can. This system here is probably only going to be kicking from start to finish for about 4 or maybe 4.5 days. So it's certainly on the lower end of what we do expect in terms of longevity, but in terms of severity, this storm here is going to be right up there, and I really can't overstate that enough. I would just like to say before we head into the impact side of the video, there's really no need for panic across New South Wales. They're used to this type of weather. We see it every year. It's not unusual, but this storm here is certainly one to be taken quite seriously, especially if you live in a severe weather prone area, especially in terms of flooding and damaging winds. There are plenty of some gnarly impacts that this storm is expected to bring through, and you should be aware of them, and you should be making the necessary preparations and taking the necessary precautions as this system draws closer. Let's talk about winds to start things off, considering that is looking to be the main threat across parts of the New South Wales east coastline. Winds aren't expected to be strong as this system begins forming, but through Tuesday we're expecting the system to rapidly intensify in terms of wind speeds, and storm force winds are expected to develop south of Port Macquarie through the Foster and Taree area through Tuesday morning and into Tuesday afternoon, damaging to locally destructive winds, tending to storm force winds expected to develop north of Wollongong through Sydney and up towards Newcastle through Tuesday afternoon and evening, and persist through Wednesday morning into Wednesday afternoon and evening as well, before winds finally begin to ease off of the Sydney coastline and contract further down south into the southeast corner of New South Wales through Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. Strong winds will persist through Thursday though, and we're not expecting the gales to leave New South Wales until early Friday morning. Still gale force wind gusts expected to persist out towards Friday and even in towards early Saturday morning here and there, but it looks like the calmer weather conditions, which will make marine-based activities such as boating, fishing and whatnot available or able to be done through Saturday and in towards Sunday. So the weekend is looking a little bit clearer. By no means is there to be any fishing, boating, swimming, any kind of marine-based activity from about this point onwards, from early tomorrow morning onwards right out to about Friday evening. It will be far, far too dangerous along the New South Wales coastline because this storm here is going to pack a punch, and I can really show you that with the wave threat. Massive waves are expected, especially through Wednesday and into Thursday. Wave heights along the coastline averaging 4 to 6 metres, with peak heights up to 8 metres expected right up into the New South Wales coastline. This isn't offshore, this is right into the New South Wales coastline, and some large waves and seas also expected to make it towards the eastern half of the Bass Strait, right in towards the Gippsland coastline of Victoria and down into the east coast of Tasmania. Wind gusts are going to be a real problem for some locations as well. In fact, some very severe wind gusts can be expected as a result of this system here. This is a map showing 4-day wind accumulation, which is the strongest wind gust expected during the selected time period out to Thursday morning, when the winds should begin to die off slowly across New South Wales. But you can see peak wind gusts coming out of the south and the southeast along the coastline expected to be well in excess of 125 kilometres an hour, and even in pockets along the coastline up to 140 kilometres an hour. Very, very strong indeed, and the destructive wind threat is going to extend right up the New South Wales coastline, down from the Victoria-New South Wales border through Narooma, Ulladulla, Jervis Bay, Wollongong, Sydney, Newcastle, Gosford, up towards Nelson Bay, Forster and Taree, and then the coastline extending north from Taree and Port Macquarie through Kempsey and Coffs Harbour. We have a damaging wind threat there. Elevated locations as well and exposed locations further inland are also looking at damaging or even destructive wind gusts here and there, especially through Wednesday and Thursday, depending on how close you are to the coastline and also how close you are to kind of the Sydney and the Wollongong area, where the winds are expected to be at their most extreme. The map that highlights the difference in the forecast from yesterday is best described is the rainfall accumulation map. We have had that southerly shift in the rainfall expected, and also a little bit of a better forecast, which is why I didn't start off the expected impact side of the video with the rainfall forecast, because the rainfall is now looking slightly better on the forecast. Don't get me wrong, some heavy falls are still expected, especially south of Port Macquarie through Taree, the Barrington Tops, Gloucester, and then Newcastle. We're expecting falls between 50 to 150 millimetres out there, and depending on how far south this system slides, we could actually see some more rainfall accumulation in those regions as well. But the reason why the rainfall has dropped off quite substantially for this area, especially through the mid-north coast, which I will just like to preface by saying that the rainfall threat there is now negligible, and we're not expecting flooding to unfold across the mid-north coast. However, we could still see some flash flooding from heavy showers, and the risk is always there, so make sure you do keep on top of the warnings and watches page. The Hunter region is where the big-time rainfall is expected to start, but for the mid-north coast, the rainfall has now died off, or that threat has now died off, with the southerly motion of this system's expected centre and the fact that it is going to be a lot closer to the coastline. We're not really going to see that moisture band get swung into this part of New South Wales. It's more going to be squally shower lines moving through into the southern areas of New South Wales, so the central coast and into the southwestern coast as well, southeastern coast rather. We're expecting those squally shower bands, those big blotches of rainfall, to be moving through in quite a significant fashion, as opposed to just those rain trains that we see further north into the New South Wales coastline around the mid-north coast. That can persist for days at a time. Also, sea temperatures aren't as flash the further south you get, which means that there's going to be less available moisture for this system to make the most of, and as such it will likely be a little bit dry as we head further south. Sydney looking at triple figure rainfall accumulations. Yesterday I saw on the Bureau of Meteorology forecast there was 15 to 160 millimetres forecast between Tuesday and Wednesday, and I was thinking, how are people meant to make their guidance based off that? 15 to 160 millimetres. It's either going to be a few showers or it's going to absolutely pour and pour and pour. My best bet right now is triple figure rainfall accumulations, especially for those eastern suburbs. The western suburbs could get away with something closer to about 50 to 75 millimetres. Even 160 millimetres in Sydney does seem a little bit aggressive, but at this point in time it does go to show that there has been some pretty big uncertainties with this storm system. But I do imagine that from this point onwards we've kind of got that congruent picture with a moderate to reasonably heavy amount of rainfall coming through, especially for Sydney's eastern suburbs. Gosford also looking at about 100 millimetres. Further south, Wollongong looking at least 125. The further south we get from Wollongong down towards Narra to Batemans Bay, falls up to 150 millimetres are possible, with spot falls into the mountainous regions up to 200 millimetres also a possibility. South of Batemans Bay through Narooma and then down towards the border on Malakuta, we're expecting falls between 80 to 120 millimetres, and again just streaming through from showers that will last for a couple of days. We're not expecting anything crazy in the way of flooding or rainfall down in this part of New South Wales. There's also some really good model congruency now. It looks like the rainfall rainfall has shifted further south, and also it is pretty much purely coastal based at this point in time. So mountains along the coastline, and I'm talking right on the coastline, within about 20 kilometres of the coastline, are expecting to receive the heaviest accumulations, especially south of Sydney, and that does take the threat out of the mid-north coast and the Barrington Tops. But yeah, good forecast model congruency at this point in time. It really does look like the forecast is becoming very clear to us this morning, and that's very good news indeed. It means that people can now start to make some preparations for this system. So what preparations should you be making at this point in time? Keep in mind this is an east coast low, not a full-blown tropical cyclone. They can sometimes be as bad as each other, but we're not talking about a mass apocalyptic weather event coming in for New South Wales. But it is still a good idea to trim the garden up and make sure that there's no loose branches that could fall on the carport or worse on the house. Make sure they are trimmed up this weekend by a qualified, someone that does trees. I'm sure someone will help me out in the comments. Arborist, I think that's the word. Make sure that you are ready for some flooding if you live in a really flood-prone area as well. Again, flash flooding seems to be the biggest impact. So if you do live in a really flood-prone area and you tend to flood on minor or moderate flood conditions, it might be a good idea to have a couple of sandbags on standby for doors and floor-to-ceiling windows. But I think that might be a little bit overkill, especially for a lot of regions. It doesn't look like flooding is going to be a pretty big problem at this point in time, and the flooding will be at its worst, like I said, from between Narooma right up towards Bateman's Bay in this kind of pocket here. Sydney flash flooding looks to be the main threat, so again, nothing really to be concerned about at this point in time. And of course, with a storm like this, it goes without saying, do not go near the ocean. Do not be a hero and try and get photos of the ocean. It is going to be extremely powerful and probably some of the worst sea conditions that we've seen from an east coast low in the past decade or so. This is definitely going to rank up there, that's for sure. This is a very powerful system and one to be taken very seriously, and that of course means without another mention of it, do not go near the ocean from about Monday morning onwards. It will just be too dangerous offshore from New South Wales. But that's going to have to do it on this East Coast low forecast. Feel free to leave me a comment if you've got any questions or concerns down in the comment section down below, or send me a message over on Facebook. There'll be a link in the description as well. I'd be more than happy to help you out in a personalised weather forecast over there. Panning things up towards Queensland now, we do have that rainfall, and that is going to be the contributing factor to this weather system here, the precursor kind of stuff moving through from the northwest. It's actually gotten a bit more moderate than what we expected. We were only expecting kind of a light to moderate dump here and there across northern Queensland, but it is a little bit more moderate as you head further inland away from Charters Towers, north of Torrens Creek up towards Forsyth, in remote cattle country over in northern Queensland. Rainfall accumulations there are going to be between 30 to 60 millimetres today, and some good falls also expected down into the central Queensland coastline and into the North Queensland coastline through the Wide Bay area and up towards the Whitsundays, where a further 20 to 30 millimetres can be expected throughout the remainder of today. Falls tonight into tomorrow morning between 30 to 60 millimetres are also expected into the Wide Bay area south of Yeppoon through Rockhampton, Gladstone, Agnes Water and Bundaberg. Falls will then begin to fall off as you get further south of Bundaberg down towards Harvey Bay and Fraser Island. Rainfall accumulations there between 15 to 25 millimetres expected, and a further 15 to 25 millimetres expected from heavier showers moving through and heavier rain dumps moving through Monday morning into the southeast of Queensland as well. It doesn't look like rainfall is going to be a problem in towards southeast Queensland, but I'm seeing a bit of a convergence zone develop on the radar, on the forecast modelling here, which could look quite gnarly on the radar imagery later tonight. So the convective forecast model is what we're going to be looking at here. We could be looking at some heavier rainfall, especially later tonight and into early tomorrow morning across southeastern Queensland, and this might be something worth keeping in the back of your head. Some heavier rainfall accumulations and some heavy rain dumps here and there could be witnessed across southeastern Queensland, especially through the eastern side of Brisbane, through Moreton Island and North Stradbroke Island, and also some good falls up around the Bribie Island area and through the Sunshine Coast. Rainfall accumulations could also get a little bit heavier down on towards the Gold Coast as well, but further inland rainfall accumulations aren't expected to be any kind of a problem whatsoever. Falls between 25 to 75 millimetres further offshore, and then, like I said, between 15 to 25 millimetres, with isolated spot falls up to 50 millimetres expected across parts of coastal southeastern Queensland. Again, rainfall not a big concern at this point in time, and then by Monday afternoon this rainfall will be moving down south into the New South Wales coastline, where much heavier falls are expected to occur down there. I'll keep you posted on the Queensland stuff, but again, a little bit of a precursor. We might see a bit of heavier rainfall or heavier than expected rainfall down there. Definitely worth something keeping in the back of your head at this point in time. Over into the southwest of Western Australia, what a change we've had from the beautiful sunshine that we've had over the last couple of days. A massive cloud band is being pushed in by a weak low pressure system, and there's no rainfall associated with it, so it's just going to be an overcast and quite gloomy day by the looks of things into the Perth metro area and through much of the southwest. In fact, it's covering a lot of the wheat belt into the Murchison region and extending right out into the goldfields as well, out towards Kalgoorlie, Coolgardie and Norseman. So cloud activity out there is going to keep things a little bit cooler today, less sunny. It's just going to be a bit of a pesky day to to end off the weekend. But again, like I said, no real rainfall is associated with this here. We might see a few showers here and there develop through tomorrow morning and into tomorrow afternoon through the southwest Capes, and then into tomorrow evening into the Perth metro area. Falls between 5 to 15 millimetres are possible through the southwest Capes and between 2 to 10 millimetres through the Perth metro area. So again, rainfall accumulations aren't going to be anything to write home about. Rainfall will ease on Tuesday before a northwest cloud band begins to develop through Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning, and then a weak cold front moves through again through Wednesday and Thursday, and it looks like that might even break apart across the Perth metro area, leaving us with a pretty small amount of rainfall in the gauge, but a further 25 to 35 millimetres could be seen over the southwest Capes and the south coastal region. Showers continuing through Thursday, evening off on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday looking to be a little bit dry before Sunday another cold front moves through. And again, I'm not 100% sure what to make of the weather systems coming through into the second week of July. We do have a little bit of stuff on the forecast. The forecast model's been pretty consistent with some wet weather here and there into the second week of July, but they're kind of all over the shop in terms of what systems can be expected, how fast or slow moving they're going to be, and what rainfall we can also expect into the southwest of WA. And again, I will comment on this in a further forecast update, because again, I'm just not sure at this point in time what to be calling and how much rainfall we're going to be seeing. Forecast models, though, are definitely quite generous. You can see 14-day rainfall accumulations across the southwest. Falls between 50 to 100 millimetres expected through parts of the south coast, and between 30 to 60 millimetres expected around the Perth metro area, and falls between 20 to 50 millimetres expected further north over the next 14 days. But a lot of this coming through into the second week and the third week of July, so probably something to be taken with a heavy pinch of salt at this point in time, and we'll have to wait and see what we can actually realistically see across the southwest of WA. It would be nice to see 100 millimetres in the gauge. There are a few locations that have had some really good falls over the last couple of weeks, but for the most part, southwest Western Australia, we can take all of the rainfall that we're given, especially at this time of the year, so a further 50 millimetres or so, even in saturated areas, would be very, very welcome indeed. And a lot of wheat places out into the wheat belt as well, in desperate need of some more rainfall as well, especially some follow-up rainfall. So some more rainfall will be very, very welcome across the southwest of WA, that's for sure. And just to wrap things up, a weak cold front moving through into the southeast of WA, Australia, and through South Australia and Victoria, but again, nothing to write home about here. A few showers moving through here and there, maybe a couple of drops of rainfall or a couple of millimetres here and there across South Australia, and even less rainfall over in Victoria. Those drought-impacted areas really struggling still with rainfall, or the lack of rainfall. So unfortunately, this isn't anything that's good news on the forecast. They'll take every drop that they can get, but this is kind of still rubbing salt in the wounds, and it'd be great to see if we can get some more rainfall into the southeast rather of Australia. Really scrambling my geography at this part of the video. So on that note, I'm going to leave it here. A special shout out, of course, to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run the show without them. So again, their support is, as always, much appreciated. That is going to do it for today. Any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll help you out as soon as I can. And I'll catch you all in the next storm. Stay safe, New South Wales. Goodbye.